here today with Tom Bilyeu, one of the founders of Quest Nutrition. Tom has gone on to do a plethora of things, both in the business sector, but also in the personal development sector with his show Inside Quest. And by the time this airs, he'll be launching Impact Theory, which is a new personal development media platform where they're going to be sharing tons of insight and philosophies to help empower people to go for more. So, Tom, thanks for being on the show today.
Man, thanks for having me, and thanks for being here all day. You guys have been a lot of fun. It's been awesome to hang out.
Absolutely, man. You've been a big inspiration to a lot of us out there with all your
cool.
work. Absolutely, man. So let's start from the beginning. Where did this all begin? This entrepreneur, unbelievable success that you've had. Where did this all begin? Take us back.
As with most grand things, it started with misery. And that's the truth. And there's a fantastic Nietzsche quote, and I'm going to brutalize it, but this will give you the idea. He said, "Upon those people that I love, I wish self-hatred, difficulty, calamity, the knowledge of total loss and destruction. And because from that you will find out the answer to the only question that matters, will you endure?" And I thought, that gives me the chills just to butcher it. When you read the real version, it's just so powerful. And that's really at the center of every great accomplishment is somebody gets fed up with the way that things are and they hit rock bottom and they either stay there or they get up, they brush themselves off, and they now have a new fiery tenacity and they're going to accomplish something. And that's it. And learning to harness the negativity in your life, learning to harness the rage inside of yourself, learning to harness the things about yourself that you don't like is powerful. And when people try to only see the beautiful in life, it's like, I get the inclination, but you're missing out on a really powerful tool. And that is anger and disappointment and betrayal and ruin and just abject failure on your part is something you can learn from and is something that you can use to drive you. So I chased money for a long time, and it seemed like the right answer at the time. And that was the beginning of my entrepreneurial path. I came to the world with my hand out, and the guys who ended up becoming my business partners, and we worked together for 14 years and founded Quest together, and just was really a beautiful relationship that lasted a very long time. They told me, you can't come to the world with your hand out. You've really got to learn to control your destiny. And that was really powerful and exactly the message I needed to hear. But what none of us realized at the time was if you're just going to chase money, you're going to come up empty. I promise you. And as somebody I've told this story so many times. I went from scrounging in my couch cushions to find enough change to put gas in my car. I'm so glad that actually happened.
How old were you at the time? Do you remember
I
that?
was probably about 22.
Wow.
And just absolutely destitute, and at one point without a job, and another point selling insurance door to door and being very bad at it.
I actually sold door to door as well before.
My man, so
I could relate. Yep.
So I've been there and now have created the kind of fantastic wealth that people they believe will be some sort of endpoint in their life. And I'm here to promise you that money is more powerful than you think, but not at all what you're expecting. And so money is tremendous. You should absolutely go get a whole bunch of it, because it's going to facilitate truly. And yes, I say it a bit tongue in cheek, but it's going to facilitate the great accomplishments in your life. So it's very, very powerful, but it is not an end in and of itself, right? It is this inert piece of paper that has no intrinsic value whatsoever. And its only worth is what it can allow you to do. So money is always meant to do something. And if that something is buy food, protect your family, build, the empire that we're building now, you're trying to do something with it. And until you have that clear vision of what you're trying to do with money, the slog of chasing it is so ugly and so tedious and so boring that you will reach a point where you ask yourself a question to which you will not have an answer, and it will be, why am I doing all of this, right? Because to succeed, and I don't care whether you succeed on something small or something very, very grand, the amount of energy is the same. And that's what people don't understand. The amount of energy is the same. So if you're going to pour yourself into something, A, it needs to have big potential, and B, you need to believe in it. But more than anything else. You've got to be excited by it. You've got to wake up with passion. And nobody wakes up with passion for money because money is inert. It does nothing. It allows you to do those other things, but if you don't know what you want to do, it goes back to just being a wad of money. Absolutely. So a wad of paper would be a better way of saying it. So 8.5 years, chase money, realize, okay, I'm making more money than I've ever made. I'm standing in this beautiful conference room overlooking the Pacific Ocean, and I'm miserable. So this is stupid.
And that was with your former company, right?
That was with Awareness Technologies, which was before Quest.
You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So that was my answer to not come to the world with my hand out. The guys, Mike and Ron, who ultimately became my business partners, had offered me a job as a copywriter and said, don't think of yourself as a copywriter. We'll teach you how to be an entrepreneur. You can have any position in the company you want. You just have to become the right person for the job. And I took them very seriously, and I worked really hard, and I started grinding it out. And you're going to hear a lot of successful people say the following. This is very true of me. I have one superpower, and that's the ability to suffer. I can suffer unimaginably. I'm just willing to do that. I have a vision for what my life can become, and I know that I'm going to have to work my ass off to get there, so I'm willing to put my nose down and just fucking grind it out. And if I have to endure and suffer, then so be it. And because my identity is wrapped up in being somebody that can do that, like I really, when I'm in the middle of suffering, I almost extend it with sort of this internal glee of, see, I can do it. So that can work for you, can work against you. So I went way too long chasing money because I hated it and wasn't realizing that I was hating it because chasing money is empty, and thought I was just hating it because it's hard. And that confusion cost me a lot of years. So when I say that, the beautiful things in my life that I've created are born out of misery, it really was that. It was making all that money only to find out that I was, completely unfulfilled, and that what I really wanted was to be fulfilled. And I wanted to find purpose and meaning in what I was doing every day, and not just have some end goal of a certain number of dollars in my bank account. So out of frustration, I went to my partners and I said, I quit. I can't do this anymore. Chasing money. And we talked very openly about, hey, this company is meant to chase money. Like, we are here to make money. We don't really care about the product. We're doing our best to make it good. Like, we're not trying to cheap out, but we don't care about it. It's not something that we thought, oh my God, the world needs this.
It's not purpose driven. It was profit driven.
Correct. So because of that, I quit. And then they said the now famous words, we could do this without you, but we don't want to. It was exactly what I needed to hear. I needed to be reminded of the brotherhood and something beyond the money. Absolutely. And they said, if we don't hit the revenue metrics that we have, then we'll sell the company and we'll build something based on passion. We didn't hit the metrics, so we sold the company and we started something that, for 3 very different reasons, we would love doing even if we were failing. And that ended up being Quest Nutrition. And it certainly wasn't obvious in the beginning. We didn't know it was going to turn into a big business. It was just something that we were fucking really believed in and really thought this was important.
That's powerful. Now, before we get to Quest, I do want to talk about your childhood. Did you always have this powerful philosophy? Is it something you cultivated? I mean, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Tacoma, Washington. I had 0 powerful philosophies as a kid. I was lazy. I was profoundly.
Did you smoke weed?
I didn't. I really have never been into drugs and alcohol. Yeah. That's one thing that I'm very, very thankful for. And I grew up in a family with a lot of alcoholics. So seeing that, they just seemed stupid when they were drunk. I mean, they were beautiful people. I fucking love them. But when they were drinking, I thought, wow, you guys seem dumb. Now, since then, my wife has corrupted me, and I have come to enjoy the occasional alcohol. If we're in, if we're in Las Vegas, I'll drink for sure, 100%. But I don't have an addictive personality, so I don't find myself coming back to it. I find it very, very easy to say no. So yeah, I'll occasionally, but no. So growing up, I didn't have my first drink of alcohol till I was 26. Wow. I didn't smoke a joint until I was, probably almost 30, and I fucking hated it. And I just thought, this is retarded. It made me feel lethargic. Like, my head felt heavy. I thought, who the hell wants to feel like this? Yeah. Like, I want to feel alive.
This is what they rap about? Yeah.
Right? So I've never done cocaine, but if you at least describe it, it sounds cool. Like, it's going to amp you up, make you feel invincible. People say, like, oh, I felt like Superman. Yeah. Fuck yeah, sign me up for something that makes you feel like Superman. But yeah, I guess I'm just chicken. I don't like drugs. I don't play with them.
Did you growing up play any sports, or did you
I
have
did,
any?
and I was universally terrible. So my sister was really good at sports, and so that maybe set the bar really high.
Yeah.
And because I was lazy and didn't understand work ethic, that I could get better. I assumed, well, I'm bad at it now, I'm always going to be bad at it, which is a terrible life philosophy. And then I also didn't, because I didn't understand that I'd be doing the hard work for myself, that it's all about getting better at something. It just felt like pain for no, purpose whatsoever. And I didn't learn my ability to suffer until much later in life. And so, no, I played sports, but was bad. My high school basketball team, you know how everyone gets a matching uniform?
Yeah.
That was everyone but me. And I had the uniform that they give like as the charity case.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, we'll leave you on the team,
The
but like
bench warmer.
you don't actually get a uniform that matches anybody else.
Yeah.
That was super embarrassing.
An outlier.
An outlier in a bad way.
There you go.
So yeah, I did cross country. I was the slowest person in the league. So not just the slowest person on my team, man, the slowest person in the league. So when you get all the high schools together and you run, I came in last at that shit, like dead last.
And you were really trying. You weren't half-assing it.
No. If you're losing that bad, you are by definition half-assing, or you're
Just a
for real,
half-ass,
right?
yeah.
Like there's no two ways about it. The person coming in last, unless you're fucking at the elite level, like you're just lazy. So I had joined the team for a girl. She was a senior. I was a freshman. I thought she was so cool.
You remember her name?
I remember her first name, Jennifer. I don't remember her last name. Wow, that's weird. She was so important, and now I can't remember her name.
Jennifer's laughing now.
Yeah. Hey. So it, I was gonna quit, and then one of the coaches came up to me and he said, "Oh, you're super inspiring though. Like you should stay." Like, because I would cheer people on, and the whole team would come cheer me on, even though I was coming in last. They shouldn't have.
She had all the insight, just not the skill.
Yeah, sort of. I've always wanted good things for people, and I think people can feel that. And so even though I was last, I didn't hate on other people. Like I wanted the guy winning to like, yeah, man, crush it. Like run your ass off. Like I'm so stoked on you. Like you're really killing it. And so I would just cheer people on like there was no tomorrow. So they voted me most inspirational. And so when the coach was like, hey, come back, I was like, you know what? It actually felt really good to be a part of a team. So I did it. Came in dead last again in league. The second year came in dead last again. My junior year, every time winning most inspirational. And then my senior year, something happened. And I decided I'm tired of being that guy. I want to take my life seriously. And I'm about to go off to college. I'm about to because my whole thing was I was rebelling against the system saying, this is all bullshit. Like I don't buy into grades. This is all stupid. I don't need to be a jock. It's all dumb, man. And my senior year, I thought, wait, I'm about to go away and do this thing that I supposedly love more than anything, that I want to make it my career. I need to start taking things seriously. And so I buckled down, and I ended up winning most improved that year. Every race I ran, I got faster. And
so you kind of channeled your internal shift, if you will, into cross country, right? Into running, would you say?
Not just that, because it began to apply to everything I was touching, and then you really see it come to fruition in college, where I was just on fire.
Do you remember that moment that where that shift happened? Was it a realization? Was it something you heard, a conversation?
I want to tell you yes, because that'd be so dope, but I do not. I just remember finally going, am I really that fucking lazy? Like, come on. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it was the beginning of the realization that I could get better at things if I applied myself, and to stop being afraid that I would fail if I actually tried, right? Because it's so easy to be like, well, I didn't even try, dude. So, but if you try and you fail, well, then now you got to own it.
Yeah.
And so it was really staring down the barrel of, I'm about to go to film school. I'm going to try to matter, right? I'm going to try to get a 3-picture deal. I'm going to try to cut into like one of the biggest industries in the world that just eats people alive. I'm about to leave my small town, go to this big city, which for me, LA was just like an unbelievably big metropolis. Everything for me was about to change. And it was super freaky, and I, panicked at one point. My mom really had to kick me in the ass and tell me to like see it through. But there was part of me that was waking up to, if you try, that's your only hope.
And do you think it was the people you were surrounding yourself with? Did you get into personal development at this time? I mean,
no, not at all. I surrounded myself with some pretty dope people and some pretty retarded people. And
contrast.
Yeah, and it wasn't intentional. It was the two sides of my personality, the jokester and then the person who can feel that he has potential. And two of my very, very close friends at the time really mirrored that. And the one who fed into my jokester ended up going to prison. And the one who fed into my, like, hey, you can really be something. He was like, have you guys seen Stand By Me, the movie?
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
you know, the two main characters and how they just like, they were so much more adult when they were together. He and I were like that. Like, being with him just made me think like, whoa, man, anything is possible. Like,
Yeah. That's so interesting because I know a lot of people, you know, and Tony talks about it too, the power of association, and many great thought leaders and achievers do is who you surround yourself with is who you become. You know, they adhere to that philosophy. Do you feel like there's something that most people miss? Because a lot of people say, well, you know, my friends are good people. You know, they're like good people, like the jokester guy, for example. And the other inspiring guy, like they're both good people, but it's a difference in standards, it's a difference in energy. How important do you feel that that distinction is for people out there listening to make, you know, when they look at their own environments or, you know, quote unquote friends? How important do you think that is for people listening?
yeah, I think that the only thing that matters are results. And if you aren't getting the result that you want, then you're not making the right decision. Surrounding yourself with people who act in a way that's going to lead you to the goals that you want to get to that's it. Like I so
Absolutely.
believe that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. How could you not be? It's like you're going to be surrounded by those ideas. You're going to feel good about yourself because they're going to praise you for things. And if they're praising you for working your ass off, for admitting a mistake, that turns you into one kind of person. If they're praising you for smoking a J or for playing an extra hour of video games or for, you know, hammering that Mountain Dew or jumping in on some cake with them, it's like, well, then you're going to go down that path because it's rad. And we are social creatures, man. And you want to please and inspire the people that you're around. And so change your circle, it will change everything about your life. And they've done crazy studies on this. If your friends on Facebook, not even your real life friends, if your friends on Facebook are obese, you're more likely to become obese. It's nuts. So you are going to morph depending on the ideas that you surround yourself with. And that's why I'm such a voracious reader, because I spend way more time with writers than I do even with my friends, just because, you know, the sheer amount of time I dedicate to reading.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's so true. Is I found that in my own life as well. And I think Tony puts it perfectly. He says that most people rise to the expectations of their peer group. You know, they did a study and they found that most veterans that serve in the military, that by the time they come back, a lot of them deal with PTSD and stress and depression and all kinds of issues like that, finding that the strongest point in their life or their career was actually when they were in the service. And it's because they felt a sense of purpose, a sense of camaraderie, a sense of standards. And they come back to civilian life and it's just, you know, they just show up. You know, there's no standards, there's no integrity, there's no value system, there's no strength being exercised. So I think that's totally, totally true. Was that a conscious effort for you to surround yourself with better people, or did it naturally just start happening as your thoughts kind of, you know, shifted into wanting to take control of your life?
It wasn't in the beginning. In the beginning, I really was hanging around with people that made me feel good, and they fed into the king of remedial jobs phase that I was in. I wanted people that looked up to me. I wanted people that I was in my chosen craft that I was better than. I wanted people that made me feel like I'd sort of already made it. And that's just like death. Like doing that is so stupid. And if I could go back in time and challenge myself and put me around people that like blew me away, but people who are better than me really made me feel insecure, and that insecurity really did eat at my ability to perform. So it's actually pretty interesting because you do have to find that balance. I don't think people should try to silence the negative voice in their head, but I also don't think they should succumb to it. I think you should listen to the negativity because it will call out shit that's real, right? You're not working hard enough. You're not good at this. Yeah, you're absolutely right. But if I let that affect how I feel about myself, now it becomes self-destructive. So that voice has got to be like that voice of clarity. It's got to be the, oh shit, okay, that's the thing I need to work on. Got it.
It's got to be a counselor, not a jailer.
Yeah. Exactly. So, so in the beginning, no, and then as I started pursuing a real goal-driven path, then I realized I need to be around people that can help me achieve that goal. And the good news is, it's not like, oh, I'm hanging out with these people that can help me achieve my goal, and I don't like them, and they're jerks. It's like you find beautiful, amazing people that can help you with that. It's not like you're choosing between good people that won't help you on your path and bad people that will. It's like you find the most amazing, beautiful, uplifting, inspiring human beings that make you feel like a better version of yourself, and you feel like better about yourself and life just being around them. And by the way, they think in this positive way that's like moving you towards your goals, and it's rad. So that was the shift. And then it was like, once you get that first taste of, whoa, this person is making me a better version of myself. Like, I want to be around other people like this. And I want to be that for somebody else. Like, I want to light them on fire and be like, yo, you can do this. Like, we got this. And that fits so well with my natural personality of, I love seeing other people win. So it was such a sketchy place for me to be, where it was like, I felt bad about myself if they were better than me, but yet I wanted them to win. It was like, ew, super weird. So you just have to change what you build your self-esteem around.
Did you ever go through depression before you made that shift, or any kinds of internal conflicts?
You know, what's interesting, if I describe to you my behavior during a certain period of my life, you're going to say, whoa, you were depressed. I didn't identify as being depressed at the time. I felt lost. And I guess the only thing...
A lot of people feel that, at that early age. And
yeah, the only thing that maybe I would say is the reason it didn't feel like depression to me was I wasn't unhappy. I just felt like I don't know how to get where I want to be. Like, I just don't understand. Like, I feel lost. And so lost is a super lame feeling. And I think that with a different personality type, that might have drugged me down into depression. But I was always trying to find the path out. And because I still felt like there was a path, I just didn't know it. That hope kept it from being too draining.
And how did you ultimately find that passion or find that path? Was that when you moved to LA? Or?
No, I was already in LA. When I was in high school, man, it was all good, man. Everything optimistic. Like, my life was rosy. I thought, I'm going to go to film school. I'm getting my 3-picture deal. Like, I'm going to be rich. And growing up, honestly, like, there were two things about myself. I just knew one day I'll be rich and one day I'll have 6-pack abs. I don't know how I'm going to have either of them. But like, they are going to happen. And
did you grow up in a middle-class household?
Middle class is sort of teetered between blue collar and white collar. So my dad, for most of my childhood, was a purchasing manager, but there for a while he didn't have a job, and then he was a mechanic for a while. But my parents were super dope. They took amazingly good care of us, and I didn't want for anything. Like, I used to think that I'd grown up poor, and then I met kids who grew up poor, and I was like, dude, my overprivileged ass needs to never complain again, because not being able to get the bike that you want does not mean you were poor. So it's like, just poverty is a whole different universe, and I've had the tremendously humbling and beautiful privilege of working with a lot of inner city youth and seeing what true poverty is. So, it just... The way that my upbringing worked against me was my parents didn't know how to be anything other than a good employee. And to them, being a good employee, not a linchpin, but being a good employee was keep your head down, do as little work as possible, and avoid punishment at all costs. So that's what they told me to do. And that's what I got good at. And that's super ineffective.
So then you come to LA and pursuing the movie thing, the 3-picture deal.
Yeah, went to film school, thought I was a stud. It's harder to get into USC film than it is to get into Harvard Law, and I got in. So I thought, dude, I got this on lock, homie.
So you got good grades in high school?
I did. Well, in high school I did, but I cheated. So let's null them out. And unfortunately, you could actually trust my SAT scores, which were a 990.
Wow.
Took it twice. That's my combined score. At the time, that was so embarrassing, and I did not want people to know that I got less than 1,000. Now I want to get it on a T-shirt because I want people to see, like, that shit is not a death sentence. Like, drop out, go in, get good grades. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is, at some point, you have to identify what you want to do, and you've got to become the best in the world at that, period. Not really good. You've got to be the best in the world. So your thing in life, at something, whether you get good grades or not, you've got to become the best in the world at it. And if you're not prepared to go in with that mentality, you're never going to get anywhere. Not anywhere grand. And not everybody wants to be. I'm speaking to all of you out there that want to do something unbelievable. For people that are very happy being a linchpin, they're very happy just having a chill life. Like, I am not the guy to listen to if you want a stress-free life. Not at all. I'm a lunatic if you want a stress-free life. So people really have to understand, like, who do you want to role model? If you want to be a rad parent, I'm not your guy, right? That's why I don't have kids. I would be a terrible parent. I just work. Like, I work. That's what I do. That's my DNA. Like, So I don't model myself after great parents because they're not going to be at the office at 1 a.m. And
Right.
I certainly don't tell parents to model themselves after me because that'd be a mess.
And when you come to LA to pursue the movie thing, was it something you had great momentum with or success with at first, or what happened to kind of steer that path? Because you didn't ultimately stick with that.
Well, I'll tell you how I stuck exactly with that in a second.
Okay.
But here's what happened. So I went to film school. I was originally terrified because I realized I didn't even check to see what you need to do to get into film school. And so what I thought you had to do, I got there and they're like, what? That's not how it works. Like you need to have applied as a junior, like as a junior in
wow.
high school. I was like, what?
Yeah.
And that's where they take the big crop, right? Is when you first start doing all your applications to college. But I thought, wait, I got into USC. Like, I don't understand. They're like, USC and USC Film School are two different schools. I'm like, what are you talking about? That was like so weird to me. I had no idea. So dumb move number one, not knowing enough about the process. And then I went into panic mode. Luckily in panic mode, I thought, whoa, I need to like really aim high here. So I found the guy that was on the admissions committee and I took him out to lunch. I said, what do I need to do to get into
Smart.
film school?
That's resourcefulness at its finest.
That's desperation at its finest. Later, it would become resourcefulness, but at the time, it was panic. And I just said, what do I need to do to get in? And he said, get good grades. And then he said at that point, because I was really panicky about my SAT scores, because that was like their whole thing. If you go as a junior in high school and say, what do I need to do to get into film school? They'll say, get over 1,300 on your SATs.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even get 1,000. So what do I do now? And the guy said, oh man, just get good grades. SATs are just meant to scholastic aptitude test. How well are you going to do in college? He's like, if you've been in college for 2 years and you're getting, great grades, then I don't care.
How did you get into USC with such a low SAT?
I had great grades. They didn't know I cheated.
Makes sense.
So I get in because I have in college or high school, I had like a 3.9 or something crazy. I was in the top 10 of my high school.
A good cheater.
I was a very good cheater. I was very charming. I will give myself that. And so teachers would cut me a shit ton of slack.
Yeah.
And so get into the process, realize I need to get good grades. I lock myself in a room. I don't go on a date. I don't drink. I don't go to a single party. Nothing. I grind it out for 2 years. I don't think I got straight A's, but I had like a 3.98 or something. It was just ridiculous. And turned in my application, got accepted. So I was like, okay, fantastic.
Wow.
Now I'm in film school, and now I'm thinking, hey, I'm one of those guys, man. It's harder to get into USC Film than Harvard Law. Like, I'm
the
amazing.
man. I did it. Yeah.
And I think, well, the 3-picture deal is assured at this point. And you do like there's 3 tiers, and tier 1 is what's called 290. I did well in 290. I was pretty stoked. I thought my stuff was good. I was getting some attention to the school. Teachers dug what I was doing. Some of the other students dug what I was doing. So now I'm really starting to get a little bit egotistical about it. And then we do this thing called a 310. I had an amazing 310 partner, and this is like you spend all semester on one film. And it's you and another person, and you have to pick. One of you is a director, one of you is a cinematographer. And the guy I partnered with was like everybody wanted him as a cinematographer, and he picked me as a director. And I was like, oh man, like it's all coming together. Like I'm about to be rich. This is nuts. And we slay it. And our 310 is just dope, and it just kills. And this kid lit it to death, and there was just enough friction between us that we end up making this just great film. And super proud of it. It's awesome. And so
Remember what it's called?
Broken Toys. It's about this woman. It's a metaphor, obviously, but it's about a woman whose husband's dead, but she can't let him go. So she's like reenacting this date with a corpse.
Sounds like the Twilight Zone a little bit.
I haven't seen it, so I can't say. So yes, sure, why not? And then you have to pitch your senior year. They pick 4 people to direct what's called a 480, and it's like a big deal. Like your whole film school career is going towards this one moment, and you're thinking, if I get a 480, then like I'm gonna get my 3-picture deal. It's done. There. Then I've got the calling card, and they give you like a real budget to do this thing. So it's like, this is it. I want to get this 480. And so I pitch, my script is crazy, and I end up getting the 480. And I think, oh, dude, like, come on. Like, it was meant to be, I am truly the man. And then in the most amazing and spectacular fashion, I crash and burn with this senior film, and I make every mistake that you could possibly make. I lose all faith in myself. I am faceplant. I am now you want to talk like, am I depressed at this point? Maybe. Because now I'm thinking, I have zero talent. Because up till this point, I didn't think I worked hard. I thought I was talented. I thought I have a natural gift at this. I was born to be a filmmaker. There's nothing for me to learn. Can't nobody teach me shit, right?
Do you think that's what led to those mistakes? That sort of
100%.
confidence?
I was a total moron. Like, I didn't take the time to learn the craft.
Right.
So I just thought, oh man, I'll show up on set, I'll wing it. Like, this is what I do. Yeah. So it was so embarrassing to flame out so publicly. There's only 4 of you that direct this film. And you do like this big screening at the end of the year. And as we're like, I mean, you're screening it sort of every step of the way. And I realize, like, you're screening your footage from what you shot that week. And I realize, oh my God, like, I'm going down in flames. Like, and everyone's watching me go down in flames. Wow. So this is like this really long drawn out. And then it's like, the sharks sense the blood in the water, man. And they're like circling. They were like, oh, we thought you were going to be the 3-picture deal guy, but now we're going to eat you alive. And so film school just got real nasty real fast. And I thought, whoa, this is like pressure, where for the first time in my life, people really wanted me to fail. And I was failing, like really, really gnarly. So that was such a rad experience in hindsight. It was so beautiful and exactly the humbling experience that I needed to understand that I'm not that guy. I'm not the guy that rolls up because he's talented. I'm going to have to outwork everybody. And once I was willing to embrace that, then things got interesting. And then I got into teaching film and I really started to understand like what this is and ended up learning a lot more about filmmaking and psychology and really beginning to research film from the perspective of the anatomy, like how the ear turns down with loud sounds and how you can leverage that to your advantage and how eye tracks motion and the way that magicians use gaps in the brain's perception to like fool you and how a filmmaker can use similar tricks. I mean, it's just like really saying, okay, I have to accept I know nothing. I have to accept that I'm inherently bad at this, but I can learn. And so I just immerse myself in learning, and there's no better way to learn than to teach. So I go into this teaching phase and realize that my love is very much with film, but it's really about psychology. And psychology turns into marketing. Marketing turns into being an entrepreneur. Being an entrepreneur turns into creating the kind of wealth that I've created. And how did I do it? And the one thing that everyone will point to that we did at Quest was we just marketed a whole new way. And we were using content, we were using psychology, using community building, all things that I learned from filmmaking. So it's not an accident that I had built a studio inside of Quest. It's not an accident that what we spun out of Quest to start as a new company is a studio. So it's like people always say, oh, you never ended up doing the film thing. I didn't do the film thing in the way that certainly I thought or anybody else was thinking I was doing it. But like that whole landscape has changed. I'm not necessarily eager to go into that. What I am eager to do, because now it's about scale, right? So I would never direct because you can't scale directing. Directing is trading time for money. But what I want to do is scale and be the studio. And so that still holds my imagination. Impact theory is about creating intellectual property in 2 areas, and these are the 2 highest impact areas in the world. And that's business. And if you look at what's happening to businesses now have largely become narrative for society. So look at what Elon Musk is doing. Do we really look at his technology, or do we tell the story of a guy who learned rocket science and is now going to, make us an interplanetary species, and a guy who wanted to end the CO2 experiment that we're doing, so he created electric cars? It's really about that narrative of who he is and what he means to us as a society. And the same for Steve Jobs, right? It was a guy who painted both sides of the fence. It became that lore of who he was, which imbued the products with something more than the products themselves were. So that became my obsession at Quest. We have to transcend the product. And we're going to transcend the product by giving people what they really need to transform. Because Quest was about transformation, right? And if we can understand that mind and body, which is what Inside Quest was all about, it was about completing that loop of transformation, of telling people the body's just a way to get to the mind and vice versa. So all of that wrapped in everything that I'd been learning in filmmaking, everything that I wanted to do from impacting people perspective. So the second part, if the first part is creating businesses that are meaningful, that are mission driven, the second is to create intellectual property, meaning movies, books, TV, comic books, that are empowering. And the reason I want to do that is those are the 2 cultural narratives that we have that as individuals we build our identity around, right? So if you think about Batman informs what it means to be a superhero when you don't have superpowers. What does Superman mean? It's, being ethical when you're incredibly powerful. Like, what do you do with that? And who do you look after? And who are you on the inside? So, you get all this stuff. Star Wars, right? It's, you're the kid on the lonely planet. Nobody knows who you are, but you're willing to put yourself out there and learn this new skill and become one with the Force and do incredible things. Or the Matrix, you're just this random guy and you realize your whole life has been a lie, and you wake up and have a chance to turn yourself into the one, but you're going to have to do the hard ass work. You're going to have to learn Kung Fu. You're going to have to put yourself out there and risk your life. Movies tell us how to be that version of ourselves that we want to be. And I want to help bring that to life. So impact theory is about creating those two things. Happens to be the two things that I'm uniquely skilled at, that I've worked very, very hard to gain skills in those areas. And that is both narrative in the form of business and letting someone interact with you and that story through a product. And then the other is narrative in its sort of truest, purest form, which is true story and filmmaking, novels, comic books. And the real money in that arena, and the reason I call it IP, intellectual property, instead of just saying a movie or whatever, the real money in that stuff is made off of the ancillary stuff. So it's not about Star Wars, it's about the toys, right? 20th Century Fox didn't get rich. George Lucas got rich because he kept the rights. And so when you have the rights to the merchandising, now you've got something. So we want to build, I don't want to create all this stuff. There's already just a bazillion amazingly talented and hungry people out there who are creating. What they don't have is the ethos to create around. So they don't know what it means to empower themselves and to tell empowering stories. And so we want to create that ecosystem of people and sort of be one of those 5 ideas that you spend time with, and then make that sort of known in the community so that the art that's coming out of that is really created around really, really empowering stories. And then the business side of, and now that we have this amazing intellectual property, that's what I know how to do. I know how to get the attention of the establishment who's going to go turn that into a movie, but we're going to retain some percentage of the rights of all the merchandising and all that stuff. So when it gets made into a movie, not only does a creator make money, but that we as this incubator also share in that, and that rather than charge them upfront money, we just take a percentage of the back end and help them build something beautiful and amazing. And so hopefully at the same time, we're creating tremendous wealth that we can then reinvest back into creating more amazing stuff. And, we're able to help these beautiful businesses and new characters and stories come to life.
That's amazing. And this power, this common thread throughout is that you've taken this growth and you've applied it to not just, what you were doing in school, but also what you were doing in business and now with empowering people. That thread all started, would you say, with that epic failure in that film that bombed?
I love that. Yes. At the time, it was just painful. At the time, it just sucked. At the time, I just
it wasn't
wanted
as
my
prophetic.
mom. Truly, I actually called my mom. And this is back in the days of payphones. I laid on the ground in the middle of campus. This is really a true story. In the middle of campus, I took the receiver off the payphone and I laid on the ground because I was so defeated. Wow. And I was just like, Mom, I failed. Like, I'm at the end of my rope. The movie's shot. Like, there's nothing left to do. It's just bad. And I don't know how to make it good. And dude, moms are moms for a reason. And she was just like, man, I love you no matter what. And I had one other friend at the time who just came, and I remember he came as I'm laying on the ground talking to my mom, and he just sat next to me. He didn't say a word. He just sat next to me. And it was like, I wasn't a pariah in his eyes. And so between my mom just being like, I still love you, baby, and him just being like this Zen figure, just like chilling next to me, and I knew that, okay, I've got this friend no matter what. That was what I needed to start the rebuilding process. And look, I'm a big believer in narrative. So sure, over time, I've mythologized that failure into being sort of this big turning point, and learning humility and learning that I need to be a grinder and that I'm not. And thinking in movie terms, I used to think I was John Woo, right? And if you know John Woo's films, like dude would just roll up on the day and be like, let's put the camera here and let's throw a crazy kick from here and flip over. And it would cut together like a ballet.
Wow.
And so I wanted to be John Woo. I wanted to just walk up and do it.
Wing it.
But what I realized is I'm Alfred Hitchcock, and I've got to pre-plan every shot months in advance, storyboard everything to the point where by the time I get on set, I'm bored.
Yeah, accept your nature. Know your nature and then accept it. A lot of people have a hard time with that.
I'll give you the first part. Know your nature. Never accept it. Never accept anything. Be willing to change anything and everything. So, but just know what's worth putting time and energy into. Because I think just acknowledging that unless I'm willing to put all the energy into becoming John Woo, which seems like a waste, because I can get the same result simply by accepting that I'm Alfred Hitchcock. So yeah, I just had to accept I'm a grinder.
And then you translate that grinding into teaching. And then I know that's where you ended up meeting what's now your wife for the last 15 years.
All right, so we have to stop the interview here because I need to acknowledge when somebody comes in prepared, and you, my friend, it is fascinating to be on this side of preparation.
Yeah.
You have honored me with your preparation, and I greatly respect and appreciate that.
I appreciate that.
So thank you. And anybody listening to this who's wondering if they should join Omar and company, it'll be worth your time. This is really impressive, man. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
So
man.
yes, that is where I met my wife. And that woman is the center of my universe. She's my everything.
Wow. And I know you guys meet there, hit it off. And I know that fast forward a little bit, you guys ended up really connecting in terms of being the same spirits, right? Both dreamers, both ambitious. For people out there, how important was a significant other at that time, and what should they look for in a partner to trust that you found in her at the time?
Yeah, there's really selection is the most important part of finding a significant other. And if I had to break down what is critical in that selection process, I would say optimism. You need somebody who's optimistic. They don't need to be foolhardy, because my wife is not, but she is very optimistic. And you need somebody who has a growth mindset. Like
Absolutely.
If you get somebody optimistic and with a growth mindset, because you have to be willing to grow over time together. And that is really, really hard. And that's what I don't think people understand. And that's why I think relationships are short term. And now we could really derail into my beliefs about the power of myth, and that everyone should read that book, and that if you're going to get married, it should be ritualistic, and you should do some sort of ritualistic scarification. And but that's like a whole nother episode.
Well, let's do it. We could do a trimmed down version where we talk about, this is something that, I was talking to Lisa, your wife, earlier, and she was mentioning that you guys were so much connected that even in times where things weren't going so well and you were broke, I know you were talking to her father, and he was saying, how are you going to, provide for her? And, things weren't looking as, as they are now, as nice as they are now. And I even saw in Louis Ho's interview that you told him, well, one day I plan on being, a very wealthy man. And that Lisa told you that, I'll bet on you, Tom. I believe in you. What was that like? That must have been a really profound moment for you, no?
Yeah, it was. So that woman is hellified gangster legit. So let's start with that. Like, she is not for play. She makes me a better version of myself, like 10x. Like, I just wouldn't be the man that I am, not even a fraction, if it wasn't for her. And having somebody in your corner who believes in you, and it's not that they believe in you when you're winning. They believe in you when you don't believe in you. You're losing. Right. You're on the ground, and they're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I believe in you. I'm here through thick and thin, but we need to get you back up. We need to brush you off. We need to refocus you and get you moving. Because there's two kinds of people. When you're down, when you've been dropped to your knees, you want one of two things. Yeah. Either you want someone to get on their knees with you, put an arm around you, and tell you everything's going to be okay.
Right.
Or you want somebody who extends you a hand, picks you back up, brushes you off, gets you refocused, and reminds you of who you are and who you're trying to become. Wow. My wife falls into the latter camp. Never for a second do I feel unloved or anything like that. She's not mean, but she very much is going to help me back to my feet. She's not going to wallow in misery with me. She's going to remind me of who I'm trying to become and keep me focused. And I just am eternally grateful for that. And is the reason that I never gave up, and is the reason that I continue to push. And it's interesting because we've got so much worldly success, and part of me did wonder, like, what happens if I actually attain this thing that I want? Will I slow down? Will I keep going? And it's, with her, we've just accelerated. And we at some point should do the conversation about how you approach the world with a chip on your shoulder, and why that's useful, and how you can bring way more beautiful things.
It's interesting you say that, because I actually had a recent breakup several weeks ago. And I actually used, for lack of a better expression, that chip on my shoulder and converted it. And, sure, I dwelled on it and it sucked and all that, but I ended up converting it into such power that ended up, I ended up using for the show, to book guests or to just take that extra level. And that's actually the same spark that ended up having us sit right here, is me reaching out to you because of that, like you said, that chip on my shoulder. So whereas you're absolutely right, whereas on the one hand you could achieve with somebody in your corner, you could also leverage those pains and those upsets and those disappointments and that whatever into really whatever the hell you want, So that's fascinating that you mentioned that.
Yeah, I love that, man. You've got a great perspective on it, and that's dope. Appreciate and I hope you tell your audience. In fact, have you told your audience about that?
Not just yet. That's probably the first note of it. Yeah.
Break it down. Set aside some time, because that's going to be really powerful. That's such an important notion, and so few people understand.
I appreciate
you
that.
You can use your positivity super powerfully. No question. You need to. You need to be able to, really work that up inside yourself. But you can use disappointment, failure, anger. Like, those things are also powerful. And there's a
Absolutely.
reason, the Star Wars talks about the dark side and how enticing it is. And it's when people can balance and use both. And Tim Grover, who was Michael Jordan's trainer, says the greatest athletes in the world, the greats, the icons of the sport, all of them are driven by a darkness. Like, there is a chip on their shoulder. There is an axe to grind. There's something they're trying to prove. And it's like, you have to, otherwise you're gonna hit a plateau and stop.
You're gonna get tired. You need something that's just beyond reason. Essentially, you need something beyond reason to push you when it's tough, and you need that resilience to kind of fight through. Yeah,
I like that. And when you hear me in future interviews saying you need something beyond reason, just know in my mind there's also there's like a silent trademark to Omar on that.
Yeah.
So
I need some George Lucas rights on that, though.
That's dope. Fair enough, man. You really do.
Very cool.
That's good. I like that.
And now there's two points I want to hit about your relationship with your wife. And I don't mean to pry too much into it, but I think it's really profound, because a lot of people out there, they get into success and achievement and personal development, and they forget how important it is to have a team or somebody on your side. I know that you guys used to actually drive around Beverly Hills when you didn't really have much going on. You want to share with the audience kind of what you guys used to do?
Yeah, it's really funny given where we are now. So
In Beverly Hills.
Yeah, so
on Mulholland Drive.
This is very much a be careful what you wish for kind of thing. So growing up, my wife and I, what show did we know? Beverly Hills 90210. Where did we go driving to, look at these beautiful houses, Beverly Hills, up to Mulholland Drive, to really be inspired. And this is when we were clipping coupons and just poor.
How old are you guys at this time?
We had just gotten married. So I was 25 and she was 22.
So 25, 22, clipping coupons, and not much money, driving around Beverly Hills, just visualizing and saying, one day, honey, we're going to be here.
In that like beat up, nasty car that you think, we honestly used to think they're going to stop us because we drive through Bel Air. And I'm like, they're going to pull us over. Like, there's
patrol
no
here.
way.
Yeah.
And you just knew, oh God, everyone's looking at us like so dodgy, because we don't belong here, not in this car.
Yeah.
And so we used to drive around here and saying, one day we're going to do it, but like, no, really, like not just dreaming, like we're actually going to do it. And, now our address is actually, as cliche as this is, it's actually Beverly Hills 90210. It's hysterical.
It's funny. I've actually done the same thing, and I didn't even know that it was a thing that other people have done. I do it the same with Ferrari dealerships, and I always stop in. So that's really cool that you note that. Is it surreal the day that you actually drive into your house for the first time when you drove that same road before and had nothing? I mean, what's that feel like inside?
It does, but it's so short-lived. It's really funny. So this concept of hedonic set points, that no matter what, you get used to it, right? So Bill Gates is used to being a multi-billionaire.
You imagine that you would get there and run around and, oh my God, it happened. But then you get there and, like Tony says, the game changes and it's like, okay, well, what's next?
Yes.
Is that what it was like?
Very much so. And my wife and I are always dreaming bigger, right? So it's like, by the time you achieve that goal that seemed just absolutely impossible, as you got to like 75% of the way there, you were already like, you'd pushed the goalpost out. So now it's like, okay, well, that number's not interesting anymore. Like, we want to do this, or that level of like, the fact that, so we did Quest Nutrition, it was amazing, and what a beautiful team, and just my partner's incredible human beings who've just done unimaginably cool stuff. And you do all this and you think, man, if I could just do something like that, like then my life would be complete. And then you do that and you're already like, and now I want to build an empire from the ground up that's like much bigger in scope and like, let's really impact people. So, it's like, our whole thing was, now I don't want to be tied down by one product. It's like, we want to do this massive, multiple companies, and you know what I mean? Like, you just start going, like, Disney, they could be doing better. Like, let's beat them at their own game. So you really start just thinking at an absurdly grand level. And that's the fun of it, right? Like, somebody has to. Like, somebody one day out there looked at an orange grove and said, this could be Disneyland, right? But it took somebody to look at an orange grove and say, I don't see an orange grove. I see just a future that nobody can imagine. And that's vision, right? Vision is hitting a target that other people doesn't even know exist.
Right.
So having that willingness to sort of look out there is wonderful. But going back to your original question, it leaves you where you're never just like our house is absurdly big, right? So it's so big.
I would concur.
It's so big. We built a set inside of our house and like almost don't notice, right? So it's crazy. But even now, it's like you sort of move beyond that and you start thinking, okay, that's awesome. And I'm so grateful. Yeah. And when our whole family's here and we fill the house to the brim, it is the most beautiful thing to me. And I love that so much.
Absolutely.
But now we're just thinking like, how do we have impact in the world that we want to have? Like, how do we touch a lot of lives? How do we show other people how to make their wildest dreams come true? How do we facilitate that? Like, how do we... And I don't like the phrase give back because it makes it sound like I took something. I like to think what we built is beautiful and it touched people's lives already in a very positive way.
It absolutely has. Absolutely.
But you still want to do more. Like you want to like impact more people and in a grander way and just really like do something. And Elon Musk has an awesome quote. And if what you're trying to do is important enough, even if the probable outcome is failure, you still need to do it. And so even if the probable outcome of impact theory is failure and we don't build, the next $10 billion businesses and we don't create the most potent library of amazing intellectual property, think Star Wars, think the Marvel universe. If we fail at that, knowing what we're trying to accomplish from impacting culture perspective of telling stories that will resonate with, the kids in the inner cities right now. Because the next Einstein, he's in the inner cities. The next Elon Musk, he's in the inner cities. Right. It just statistically, they're there.
Just waiting to be reached.
Yeah, but their frame of reference is so destructive that they'll never do it. So being able to have that kind of impact and change and show people a beautiful future and a way to take control of their own mind and create whatever they want, like I feel like that's my calling. But even if I fail, we're still going all in.
You're happy to be in the process. Yeah, absolutely. For you, it's all about process. And now we'll get to Quest and impact theory, but this is the last question about you and Lisa. And I know I've kind of been going back to it because I find it so fascinating, and I think listeners out there will too, is that I know that there was a moment where, her father was kind of a little bit, not skeptical, but doubtful about the future. Okay. Skeptical about the future, and you being able to provide for her, and you ended up telling him, what was it, that one day I plan to be a very different story?
Let me tell you that the most beautiful gift anyone, especially someone you respect, can give you is doubt. It isn't to be your cheerleader. Because while a cheerleader is nice, a cheerleader doesn't put a chip on your shoulder. A cheerleader doesn't drive you. You need a cheerleader. Like, don't get me wrong. You need somebody who also believes in you. If my wife had been heckling me, that would have been hard. If my wife had been like, I'm not so sure you can do it. Like, whoa. Like that.
If your girlfriend did that, she wouldn't be your wife.
100%. Dude, and let me tell you right now, if you've got a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a husband and they heckle you and they make you less of who you are, move on.
But what if you love them and you've been with them so long and you don't know what life would be like without them and all those doubts
When
and
fears. I hear that, it's like somebody saying that I like the taste of gunmetal. It's like, take the gun out of your mouth. That's so stupid. Like, there's no, look, we'll derail on that, but find people that lift you up, period. Done. And if, we ever want to do I'll do a full session on that.
Yeah.
But find people that lift you up. So, so her father gave me the profound gift of doubt. He's a very successful man. And when he met me, I was actually out of work. I didn't even have a job. But the job that I'd had before that was teaching. Wow. And he said, look, my daughter has grown accustomed to a certain lifestyle. How are you going to take care of her? And I knew what he meant, which was, and by the way, I went there to ask for his blessing, which he didn't give me.
Wow.
Which is amazing. It was amazing. So I said, I know what you see right now is somebody who is undereducated, poor, but sir, what you don't understand is I'm the most ambitious man you've ever met. And while right now I don't have a lot of money, I will make your daughter wealthy one day. And the beautiful thing was, flash forward, I guess it was more than 10 years, so maybe it took me too long, but flash forward, 10 plus years later, and we're walking the production floor of Quest, 110,000 square feet, 600 employees, whatever. I'm just bustling around. And I said, Andreas, do you remember the day that you asked me how I would take care of your daughter? And he said, yes. And I said, how am I doing? And he just started crying.
Wow.
And it was so cool. And I have to say, so while he gave me the gift of doubt, he has always been supportive and is a beautiful human being. Very, very kind to me, very, very welcoming. So it was like this wonderful mix of, hey, no need to marry my daughter. Like, why don't you take your time? Like, no need to rush into it. And, I don't think you're capable of taking care of her in the way that she's accustomed. But at the same time, like, hey, welcome to the family. And just truly, truly a great
Gracious,
guy. And gracious, perfect. And I would be remiss not to point that out. But yeah, it was that arc of going from him doubting me very openly to and even having to say on the night that I had asked for his blessing, where he was telling me, please don't marry my daughter, not in a horrible way, just like, hey, there's no rush, like, take your time, I'm not old fashioned, like he was literally like, to give you an idea, he was like, I will give you, he owned this house next door, I will give you the house next door, just don't marry my daughter.
Wow.
He would give it to her and we could live there, obviously. And we said no, and we're going to go at, our own. And so I said, sir, look, I hear you. I want to be respectful, but just so you know, I am going to ask your daughter to marry me. And I did. And she said yes. And he was never anything but amazing. And the rest is history.
Wow. Okay. So now let's get right to it. You forwarded some successful startups prior. I know that you guys had Awareness Tech, which did very well. Were there any other entrepreneurial endeavors when you came back?
Yeah, so I was a wantrepreneur in the extreme when I was fresh out of college. So I did some MLMs. That's when I was selling insurance door to door, trying to build that downline, baby. But just so desperate to
residual income.
Exactly, so desperate to have passive income, to be my own boss. I did that. I started a photography company. Just any sort of side hustle that I could get going.
Is that where you found personal development in the MLM world?
A little bit, yeah. Like I was just always from the time I got out of college. By then, after the big failure and everything, I understood I have to improve, and I was reading a lot. And so this notion that I have to get better, that I can get better, and that I'm encountering all these amazing ideas in these books, encountering Tony Robbins and just being blown away by how he was kicking me in the ass and making me feel empowered at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was like, whoa. And so realizing that his advice was real, which is just the highest compliment I can pay anybody Absolutely. Out there, if you think Tony is just a rah-rah guy, I promise you, like, do what he says, your life will turn around.
Oh, so many times over, it's happened to me, so I concur, I second that notion.
Yeah, you're right on the money. He's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, all of that was sort of happening at the same time. And the MLMs more gave me a chance to be gutsy, right? To quit my job and go do this MLM thing. Because I thought,
become a multi-level marketing millionaire.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where I was headed. But I didn't know how to sell. I didn't know how to market. Like, so much of it was foreign to me. But it forced me to knock, buy something, buy something, right? And you toughen up. Like, you get a resolve. And so it was just invaluable. But the thing that really accelerated my growth was when the guys who ultimately became my business partners hired me as a copywriter. And those guys were just a PhD in entrepreneurship.
So from MLM, you try something else. What was it from MLM to Awareness Tech? Because you obviously at that point had given up film because you crashed and burned.
Yeah. So I hadn't given up film. So everything I was doing, and I had a slew of hilarious jobs.
Okay.
Including one. This is my favorite. So.
Gotta hear this one.
This is in my king of remedial jobs phase, right? So I'm telling everybody, hey, I actually said with pride, I am the king of remedial jobs. And what I meant by that was, if I went, there was a certain time, because this is back in the newspaper days, man. I would like flip through a newspaper before Craigslist, baby.
Yeah.
And I would find like a list of, help wanted
ads.
And there was one that was like, driver wanted, must have own car. And I was like, yeah, buddy, like, I'll be able to drive and write screenplays while I'm driving. Like, this is fantastic, because it was like you had to wait. It was like drive people, drop them off, wait, take them back. And so I thought, okay, well, I'm going to have a fair amount of time, just writing. So I go to this interview and I show up in this like super shady like strip mall. The guy interviewing me has no shoes on. He's got his feet up on the desk and he's playing guitar during the interview, like strumming absentmindedly on the guitar while he's interviewing me. And I was like, I'm going to get this job. Like, this is my guy. Like, this is where I shine. Because by this time, I've already developed my verbal skills. So I'm very able to charm him and really, and Jesus, I have a degree.
Yeah.
So there I am, like, did really well in college, and he's reading my resume, and he's blown away by how I'm talking. And I'm like, I got this, man. And he's like, why are you applying for this job? And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, dude, you're like way overqualified for this. And I'm thinking, that makes me feel so good about myself, right? Like, that's all I want to hear. That's why I'm here. Stroke my ego, make me feel good.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, but it's going to give me time to write. And I was like, but tell me a little bit more. Like, what am I doing exactly? Like, what am I driving? And he was like, models. And I'm like, models? Like, I'm driving models to like photo shoots?
Yeah.
He's like, well, not really. He's like, you're going to be driving models. And like alarm bells start going off. You're going to be driving models to like private showings and, all you have to do, you're going to have a pager and the girl will text you a number. And if she texts you a 1, it's like she needs 10 more minutes. And if she texts you 911, though, you go kick in the door and you like find out what's going on. And I'm like, what? And so I'm like, oh man, like I don't really get like what is going on. This sounds super dicey.
Right.
But like how perfect. I'm going to be able to write. Like this is going to be amazing. I bet I'll meet crazy people. Like they'll give me all kinds of stories. It's going to be so awesome. And so self-delusion kicks in. I'm like, it can't be that bad. Like, it's just modeling. And I go home, and it's like a night job.
And you take
obviously.
the gig.
I say yes.
Wow.
I say yes. I go home, and I'm sleeping now in the middle of the day because I'm about to drive for the first time that night.
Right.
And
it's the big night.
It's the big night. And my mom calls, and I wake up, and I'm like, hello? And she's like, why are you sleeping? And I'm like, oh, I've got this new job. She's like, doing what? And I'm like, driving models. And she's like, they're escorts. You're not driving models. And she's like, no son of mine can take this job. Yeah. So I'm like,
you make Washington unproud.
That was pretty stupid. I don't know what I was thinking. So I never actually did it, but for a very brief moment,
you were on your path.
I sort of had a job driving models. So mom to the rescue again.
So then you attempt to drive models, and then what happens before Awareness Tech?
I go back to teaching. So, and that ended up, the teaching, this was at the New York Film Academy, gave me so many amazing things in my life. And there's a whole book. I don't believe in fate, but Jesus, the story of how my wife and I managed to logistically get together when she's in London and I'm in Los Angeles, and all the things that had to go perfectly for us to make it happen. It's unbelievable. And when I walk people through how many coincidences lined up, it's pretty absurd. So the New York Film Academy gave me just a lot of great things in my life, and including my wife, and ended up leading me to the guys that became my partners, and then my journey into true entrepreneurship. And so, yeah.
Okay. And then Awareness Tech, how did that start? That was just a group of guys. You guys got together and started a tech company to make money? Or
So they had 2 companies going, and one was sort of Awareness Tech. They didn't have the software yet. It didn't really exist. And they said, we need a copywriter. Mm-hmm. And so I said, okay, well, I'll be a copywriter.
How'd you meet these guys?
They heard me give a lecture on filmmaking, not really filmmaking, but how to use psychology to influence buying behavior, and how to use media to do that.
So through teaching, you met these guys who hired you to be a copywriter.
Exactly.
So you connected the dots that way. Okay,
exactly.
Makes sense.
And so I had a lot of people come through the school that were like, we're going to work together. And these guys actually made good on that promise and said, hey, we'll teach you to be an entrepreneur. Stop coming to the world with your hand out. You're never going to be able to make the movies you want to make. Somebody else controls the money. So learn to be an entrepreneur. But the job we actually have is a copywriter. So you're going to write copy. But don't think of yourself as just a copywriter. Think of yourself as a partner in the business. So get the copywriting done and then do a whole bunch of other stuff.
So you had an ownership stake in it as well?
Not at first. No, I had to earn my way to that. But ultimately, by the time we sold the company, I had 10% ownership.
And when you guys sold the company, was it a multi-million-dollar acquisition? Or
It was, but like a small multi-million-dollar acquisition.
And at the time of that acquisition, how old are you?
God, how old was I when we sold that? So we did Quest for 6 years. So I would have been 34.
Okay, so 34. And when that acquisition goes through and it's a couple $1,000,000, are you psyched, or you're already looking for the next thing?
No, man, I was mortified by that. That was the company that I went and said I quit. I can't do this anymore. 'Cause this is just
Yeah.
chasing money.
And so it was like Tony talks about success without fulfillment. It's the ultimate failure. Was that kind of thing?
100%. And just ridiculous. I was making more money than I'd ever made in my life, and I had 10% ownership in this company, and I never invested money. It was all through sweat equity, and so for the first like 4 years, it was magical, and I didn't mind that I was working nonstop. So I was working, not only was I working at Awareness Tech, but I was also doing side hustles. So I was doing like domain squatting and trying to get good at that. And, before people really knew what they were doing, trying to build up affiliate websites. And, so I was doing the side hustle thing and then doing Awareness Tech and through performance, just busting my ass. I went from copywriter to an owner and principal in the company and the chief marketing officer, but also during all of that, just completely burned out and had success without fulfillment, and finally convinced the guys that, look, if you want to keep being a partner with me, then we've got to sell. And they felt the same, and so we decided to do something that we could believe in and that was based purely on passion. And
so when you guys sold that company, you ended up using that the profit from that deal to maybe not start Quest, but I guess to figure out what to do next. Because I know it was 3 of you that started with 10 grand. Is that correct? 3 of you guys branded it to get 4 of you? 4 total.
There were 4 at the very beginning, and then one guy moved on.
And it was $10,000 startup, correct?
Yeah, that was probably like the first 8 months was all we invested. So what we did was I was the first full-time employee. So they both stayed. Yeah. So they both stayed back at Awareness Tech, and I went and started Quest. So for the first year, from a day-to-day perspective, it was just me.
Wow.
And
who came up with the name for Quest, by the way?
I think it was, the first person that threw it out, I think, was Ron's wife.
Yeah. Ron who's now the CEO of Quest, correct?
Yeah. So he was always CEO of Quest. I was president. And I'm 99% sure that it was his wife that threw out the name. But it was one of those things where it wasn't like obvious at first. And we had so many names on the list, and it's like impact theory, same thing here. Like we went through so many names, and what can you trademark? And it's just like this brutal process. But Quest ended up being the one that sort of like we kept coming back to, like, hey, that's pretty dope. Like it works with a lot of things, and it's got just an amazing amount of riffability.
Do you remember the second runner-up?
I don't, man. I don't. It's a long time ago now. So, if we were officially at Quest for 6 years, another year to 18 months before that we were really conceptualizing and starting to think of names and stuff. So, it's been,
so long,
8-ish years. So.
Wow. And then Quest starts, and I know you guys were making the bars in your garage originally. Is that true?
Not in the garage, and hopefully that makes everybody feel a lot better. No, we were making them in a commercial kitchen that we rented by the hour.
Wow.
So we would, we were shipping them out of the garage though, but they were packaged by then. We would run the software company by day, and then at night we would go and make the bars with rolling pins and handheld knives. It was just.
And did you guys have any experience in ingredient making? I mean, where did you guys go out and seek the wisdom to figure out the ingredients? Because that's what ended up being your guys' claim to fame in that space.
So Ron is an absurdly talented person with metabolism and nutrition, and just really, really gets it. I mean, that guy is a genius. So he is, in my opinion, and look, obviously I'm very close to the situation, but he's the Steve Jobs of nutrition, in my opinion. Like, that guy is just amazing. And then his wife Shannon she was really good at the formulation. She formulated the first couple bars in the kitchen, and that was like sort of proof of concept. And then we had to commercialize that, and that's one of those things that didn't really think about, is what does that entail, right? And you really have to like completely reformulate the bars, because it just doesn't hang together when it's what works in your kitchen ends up rotting on the shelf. And so you have to find a way to make it shelf stable. So we had to bring in food scientists and stuff for that. And, even Ron at the time didn't know enough about it. And so we had to have experts come in and teach us, but we all learned very quickly. And Ron was so passionate about it and was just absorbing all of that information and got just insanely good at it.
So passion is what fueled Ron and his wife's sort of understanding of it. It wasn't that they had degrees or some sort of technical
neither of them do. So Shannon was a personal trainer, and Ron was just a guy that really wanted to understand his own body and knew to add the muscle he wanted to add, he was really going to have to understand human metabolism. And he was a pre-med student, and so had some pretty serious training.
So there was
from that
some
perspective.
background,
From a metabolic standpoint, but not from a food science standpoint. None of us had experience in that.
And then I know you guys had an issue with contract manufacturing, right? You figured out that you couldn't do it, so you guys had to figure out a plan B. What was that like?
Yeah, that was absolutely hysterical. So we never intended to be our own manufacturer, and we went to the contract manufacturers and said, hey, we want to make these bars. They're unlike anything else that's out there on the market. And they're like, yeah, this is great, but you can't make it on the machines. And what we realized was, for the last 50, 60 years, equipment has been developed in lockstep with the use of high fructose corn syrup. So, and not only does high fructose corn syrup taste great, preserve the bars, it also makes them insanely pliable. So they go through the machines really, really easily. So once you pull that out, even if you replace it with a liquid fiber, so you think like this looks the same.
Close enough.
It's just radically, radically different as it goes through the equipment. So we very quickly realized that it's just not going to work, and everyone that told us it wasn't going to work was right. But my other partner, Mike, is truly an Iowa farm boy and looked at the equipment and thought, to get our stuff to work on this, if you let me re-engineer the equipment, we can make this happen. And that's what he did. He ended up cutting it apart with a Sawzall and welding it back together, and it worked. And it was like, holy hell. And so all of a sudden we were in the game of not only manufacturing, but engineering our own equipment. So it was, it was pretty
a breakthrough.
insane.
And at that time, I know that the market was super saturated with all these new bars coming out. So to come out, you guys were definitely not the first to market. I think a lot of people don't even realize that Quest barely launched in 2010? Is that correct?
Yeah, 2010, exactly.
So 6 years ago, it didn't even exist. It wasn't even a brand,
Yeah.
That's amazing. And then I know the first 3 years you guys grow 57,000%. Is that correct?
That is correct, yeah.
Wow. And then you guys did your own sales? Were you just doing it by the phone at first, trying to get in stores, or what was that first process
so
like?
In the beginning, it was all about going online. We wanted to have a direct relationship with the customer, and this was one of the early decisions that we had to make was, do you go into stores first or do you go online first? And I remember it was a big battle, and finally the right idea won out. And we went online first and established that relationship with the consumer and built a community, and were able to leverage our understanding of social marketing, and that's really what allowed us to grow A, rapidly, and B, go to stores with a position of power instead of really coming and sort of begging to be put on shelves. So we didn't have to agree to a lot of the things that other people did.
Right.
We negotiated contracts that were survivable. Like a lot of times the contracts that you get are so lopsided in favor of the retailer, you just can't survive. There's no margin.
And you just got to take it if you're a startup, but you guys had the leverage of already having momentum from online sales.
Exactly.
Wow. And then I know that as of current, you're sort of stepping not necessarily away from Quest, just away from operational duties. You want to kind of elaborate on that transition?
Yeah, so I've moved into a founder role, so I still evangelize for the brand and think that it is one of the most important companies. And I feel a little more able to say this now that I've got a tiny bit of distance from it, and believe that it's going to be one of the most important food companies going forward. The vision for the company is astonishing. What they're doing is just unbelievable. And when you see what they've got planned for the next couple of years, it's going to change the face of food. And I'm super excited, and felt like now was the perfect time to transition and really now bring to fruition what I see as the other side of the transformation coin. And Quest was always meant to be about transformation and helping people really get their body right, and honestly getting to the mind through the body. And now want to create, because I believe that there's two pandemics that we face as a society, the body and the mind. The body, that one's very easy to see. Obesity's on the rise. Something like 30,000 new people are diagnosed with diabetes every 30 seconds. And it's just crazy. People 200-300 pounds overweight, dying of malnutrition. That problem is so obvious.
I think it's super profound. I don't mean to interject there, but I think it's super profound that you say that, because one of the interesting things about Quest and what caught my attention is that I remember reading about it, and whereas all these other bars are trying to sell you these new flavors, you guys' mission was, we want to end metabolic disease. And so that boldness, I think, was really important. Do you feel like that was integral to both the spirit of the company in terms of growing customers and getting them in line with that vision, and also keeping you in line during the hard times? Like, hey, this isn't about making money, kind of like Awareness Tech was. This is really about ending metabolic disease. We're not doing it for money. We got to get through these obstacles to end metabolic disease. Do you feel like that was integral and that a lot of entrepreneurs miss that?
Yeah, I think every company needs to have a mission. You need to know what you're trying to accomplish, because every company needs a filter. What do I say yes
Right.
to? What do I say no to? And that signal to noise ratio in opportunity is so hard to find that the very first line of defense is what aligns with the mission. And that really is super, super critical,
Right.
and is one of the things that allowed Quest to make its ethos known in terms of here. This is why we're creating the products that we're creating. They're convenient, they're tasty, because we know that we need convenient and tasty food in order to battle the epidemic that we're facing. So, because you can tell a very, very narrow band of people to eat less and exercise more, and they'll actually do it.
Right.
And that will work, by the way, everyone. That is a prescription that will work for every single human being. But most people can't stick with it. And so the diet that you stick with is better than the perfect diet that you don't. So we wanted to create just amazing, amazing quality food that was convenient and in snack food form, so that people would actually eat it. And
Made from good ingredients.
yeah, exactly. And what I tell entrepreneurs is don't try to change behavior, try to leverage behavior. And whenever you're in the game of changing behavior, you got a big slog. So we knew that people eat food for pleasure, not for sustenance. So let's give them food that they can eat because they like the taste. And that was really the mission out of the gate.
And it worked. I mean, you guys built $1 billion business out of it. So now transitioning, we're talking about impact theory. So for a lot of listeners, this is going to be one of the first a few videos out or audio pieces out about impact theory. So you want to kind of go into depth and share with listeners what impact theory and your newfound mission is all about?
Yeah, so there are the two epidemics that I was talking about, the body and the mind. I feel like Quest is addressing the body, and I felt that it could continue to do that without me. And for me to really continue to deliver value to Quest, I'd have to develop a skill set that I'm actually not interested in developing. So from a timing perspective, it felt like, okay, where do I want to allocate my energy, my resources? And now it really is the flip side of the coin, which for me, it was always very essential. But focusing on the mind looked like it was going to start to become a distraction for Quest. So by splitting it off and by spinning the studio out and doing what we had started there at Quest to create a platform that exists on two levels. One, it exists to awaken the I'll call it the entrepreneurial spirit. It doesn't have to manifest itself in terms of wanting to start a business. Like you can embody the entrepreneurial spirit to be a better parent, to whatever it is that you're trying to do, or to truly start a business. But to awaken that entrepreneurial spirit of self-improvement, of no excuses, of grinding it out, of dedicating yourself to finding meaning and purpose and executing at the highest level, and then creating intellectual property. So we want to have the largest library of intellectual property, intellectual property around empowerment. And what we mean by that is the companies and the content are both intellectual property. So from a company perspective, we see ourselves as an incubator. So we want to use technology to filter out the noise. There's going to be a lot of noise. I get hit up every day on social with somebody who wants me to take a look at their company and advise or whatever. And obviously we just can't say yes to all of them. So we want the community to filter them out so that we get the cream of the crop, the ones that are going to have the most impact on the world, the ones that are most viable, the ones that are run by the highest level entrepreneurs. And then on the other side, we want to help facilitate the stories that are being created by the amazingly talented human beings that are out there right now, writing books, writing screenplays, writing comic books, all things that are around this ethos of self-empowerment. And it's got to, yeah, for sure. And it's got to be a great story first, right? It's just like Quest. It's got to be, the food has to taste good. So the story has to be good. But The Matrix changed my life. Like I know how a story designed around empowerment can be both wildly entertaining, amazingly executed upon, and impact truly the lives of the people watching it. So that's what we want to do. So we're really building out this incubator, and we see it as incubating people, and those people may execute on a company or they may execute on creative, but what we want to do is incubate those people. And so it just so happens that the collective of people that we've put together are uniquely talented and have executed at the absolute highest level in those arenas. So that's what we're looking to do, and we're amassing amassing connections with Hollywood as we speak. So we'll be able to help people go in sort of either direction. And our model will be very simple. We will take a small percentage of companies. We will do some for people that have access to high level resources.
Right.
If they want to skip to the front of the queue by just it still needs to be a mission-based business, but if they have the clout and they've had some success and they want to get our attention, we can do that. But we would prefer the long game.
Right.
We would prefer to really incubate it from a concept, help the entrepreneur grow into the person that they need to be in order to execute on this. And that certainly is the show and what the show is designed to do. And then help them get attention and get the contacts that they need. And for a very select few number of companies, help them get the capital they need. Really execute on this and really bring companies into the world. And the only way to do that at a high level is to amass an amazing team. And this is all the long-term vision. This isn't
Right.
day one. Day one is essentially the show. Day one is the ecosystem. Day one is the community, and showing the community what Inside Quest was trying to become, but now really can become because it has my full attention.
Right.
So supercharging that, and that'll be what we launch with. And then over the next 12 to 24 months, we'll be building out the technological platform and really building out this ecosystem of people who are at varying stages of either creating a company or intellectual property and beginning to make that stuff happen. And we'll live or die by our ability to actually bring this stuff into the world.
And bring value to that marketplace and those
sure.
listeners. So we're basically talking about two things: is really an incubator on the one hand, which is a little bit of a long-term play, and then immediately digital content, right? We're talking about digital empowering content. Are we talking exclusively through YouTube and digital mediums like that, or are we talking a little bit more? Or?
No, we're a digital first company. There's no
Right.
question about that. We want to be of the moment. We want to be, as Gary Vaynerchuk talks about, we want to market in the year that we live.
Right.
So we're looking mobile, we're looking digital, we're looking, for potential partnerships with people like Netflix and things like that, that really understand the way that people consume content and how much it's all changed. That is, I think, how this is going to play out, but we're not even overly married to that. And I think that technology evolves so quickly. The only thing we know for sure is the way that humans interact with story. And so we're paying a close eye. I mean, the two guests that we had on the show today, who are both neuroscientists, and hopefully people see is a nod to how seriously we take even the evolving nature of the way that we interact with content, because I think even that is changing. But that'll really be where we have our finger on the pulse, is helping not only develop that content, but find the right home, watch how people are interacting with it, and really steer by the data. And that's something that's a huge inspiration for us, and is just a critical learning for me, and is an area that I feel I've made mistakes in the past, and want to get better at just data.
And what do you hope after all this for your legacy to be? When you sit down at night, or you lay down at night, you have your head on the pillow, all this work, what's it for you?
I'm really an in the moment guy. So I think of like, what do I want today to feel like?
Right.
Versus legacy, because look, we're not promised the next 15 minutes. I could have an aneurysm before the end of this interview. And I think that's super powerful, and people really, really need to think about that. And there's two notions that I find incredibly powerful that will help you understand my answer. One is what Steve Jobs said, which is, I know that I'm going to die, and that gives a clarity to your actions, and why not follow your own dreams. And then two, I really think that it's entirely possible that we're living in the Matrix. And if we're living in the Matrix right now, it's entirely possible that all your memories are fake. And imagine that only right now in this moment, like literally you just woke up this second, and everything before this second is fake, and you made it up, or it's been implanted in your brain. That tells me, oh, that's all malleable. It's manipulatable. I can construct something that's destructive to me or empowering to me, and I choose to do that which is empowering. So even though I know that's probably BS, and it's probably exactly what you think, and you're probably not in the Matrix, it's just thinking like that everything other than this moment right here isn't real, and therefore I should choose to believe of it that which moves me towards my goals. That's just super, super empowering reminder. So what I want to do is I want to improve myself. And I want to gain as many skills as I can gain that have utility, and I want to put that utility to the test. Any business that I ever do is merely the thing I have chosen to be the litmus test for whether the skills are the right skills or not. But they are not as important as my core desire to improve myself. So the real mission of my life is to see how many skills I can acquire, how much potential can I wring out of myself. I just make the demand that as I wring that potential out of myself, that it's more beautiful for other people. And I want to help other people, and that juices me, and that gets me excited. And seeing that moment of awakening in somebody's eyes where they went from feeling trapped in their own life to realizing that they control their own destiny, that's just the juice for me. That's the beautiful moment.
Do you feel that you're finally in control of your own destiny as you dreamed so many years ago?
100%. So, and being in control of your destiny doesn't even come down to the money. It comes down to a mindset. So it's, I always say there's only two things I'm afraid of happening. And one, something happening to my wife that would be just devastating beyond measure. And then brain damage. Because if you don't damage my brain and you don't take my wife, then I can rebuild anything.
Right.
And so this is actually a really fun time for me. And you really begin to understand who I am as a person when you realize, like, leaving Quest wasn't scary for me. Leaving Quest was, I love change. I love a challenge. I want to see, can I build it again? And the proof will be in the pudding, and I love that. And you're going to hear all my early interviews. I'm going to talk about that. Like, I want people to watch what we do. I want to put big stakes now. I want to say bold shit now. Yeah. And then I want people to see that I live up to it, or that I don't, right? And then, hey, shame on me. But what I'm not going to do is be afraid to say what I'm up to. Like, we're here to do something big. I want this to be $1 billion company. I want it to be bigger than anything I've ever done in the past. I refuse to ever let my past be bigger than my future. So we did something amazing at Quest, massive, and I think the company's going to only continue to grow and be amazing. But what we're doing now is going to be bigger. It's going to have bigger impact, and those will be the two pillars of, if I'm going to think in terms of legacy, those will be the two pillars: the body and the mind.
Wow, and we can't wait to see it.
Thank you.
Now, at the end of every show, we always play a game called First Things First.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to say 10 words, and you tell me the first word or phrase that comes to mind.
Love it.
The only rule is that you can't repeat the same thing twice.
Got it.
Cool.
I'm in.
All right. So, passion.
Love.
Purpose.
Drive.
Fear.
Nothing. And I'm surprised by that because I'm scared of all kinds of shit, but you said first things first. So that's weird even for me.
Your wife.
It's interesting, the universe. So I don't know if that's because I often describe her as the universe, but I didn't have a word in my mind. I actually saw a nebula. That's really interesting.
Beverly Hills.
90210.
Dreams.
Come true.
Resilience.
All day.
Freedom.
From what?
Doubt.
I live in it. That's interesting. That one surprised me.
And the last one, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Power.
Seeking. But anybody that knows me knows that seeking power is like my thing. That phrase. And the only reason this company, the new company, isn't called Seeking Power is because people misunderstand what I mean by power. They hear something ugly, and that makes me very sad. What I mean by power is the ability to close your eyes and envision a future that doesn't exist, open them, and make it happen.
Wow.
That to me is power.
And you most certainly have done that.
Thank you. And hopefully we'll continue to do it. And I wish upon everybody that they could find joy in that. And the future that they imagine doesn't have to be mine. It can be whatever.
Right, whatever they want it
something
to be.
Beautiful, something that's meaningful to them. But to me, to not try to put yourself in a position where you can close your eyes and imagine the world the way that you think it should be, open them, and be able to execute upon that. That's it. Like, there is nothing else for me.
And so the final question is this. To little Timmy out there who's gone after his big dream and whatever that space is, or anybody at any age, really, whether 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatever it is, seeking to really have that thing in their head and really go for it, and they're boggled down by doubt or money issues or a significant other, whatever the challenge may be, as it will continue to arise at any point in life. To somebody listening to this podcast, really looking to really go for it, if you could give them your last piece of wisdom and you could look into the camera, what would it be?
Do you want me to be honest?
Absolutely.
It's all your fault. Everything. Every bad thing that has ever happened to you is your fault. And if tonight a meteorite comes screaming through the atmosphere, crashes into my bedroom, and kills my wife, I will know that that is my fault. Now, I use the word fault to shake people up. I know that it's making you mad right now. I know that it winds you up and you think that I'm victim shaming. And when you get beyond that and you realize all I'm trying to do is remind you that you are never, ever, ever, ever a victim unless you choose to be, everything in your life will change. You're always in control, even if that's a lie. And I don't care if it is. Even if a meteorite coming in and killing my wife couldn't possibly be my fault, I'm going to own it. Because the second I give away my power to somebody else, I'm now at something else's mercy. And there is some line that I can't cross, that I'm no longer in control. And I refuse to do that. If I could give anybody a gift, it would be that, for you to own that completely top to bottom, and to know that every good thing that's ever happened in your life, no matter how much it seemed like luck or coincidence, that was you. You earned that. You put yourself in that position. And as you move forward, life is one of two things: the result you wanted or the result you didn't want. If you don't get the result you want, you are by definition doing the wrong thing, and you must change. If you get the result that you want, then you did the right thing. Simple as, no gray, nothing in between. That's it. It's all your fault. And that's the best news possible.
So as we sit here and wrap up in your beautiful Beverly Hills home, and thank you again for having us. It's truly been a privilege and an honor to be able to pick your mind and share your story. Is it really possible? Is it really possible to go from being a broke kid to sitting in your beautiful home and here in Mulholland Drive in Beverly Hills?
For most
and really
people,
make
no.
it happen.
For most people, it's not. And that's not the answer you're expecting. And I hope each and every person out there is like, fuck you.
Oh, they will
After
be.
all that, you're going to tell me, like, I can't do it?
Yeah.
You goddamn right. And why am I telling you that? What did I say was the greatest gift anyone could give you? Doubt. Now I want you to put that on your shoulder. Let that chip piss you off. Let it focus your energies so that you'll go out and do something. And here's the reason. Here's why this is the safest bet in the world. Because I know most people are not prepared to suffer. They're not prepared to grind it out. They're not prepared to be bored. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize that is coming for you. You see that wall right there? I painted that. You see that wall right there? I painted that. You see the wall there? I painted that. Did it suck? Yes. And did I paint it in the middle of the night after getting no sleep? Yes. But do you have to grind that shit out and do boring stuff? Could I have said, what am I doing? I'm rich. Why am I painting this? This is retarded. Because I had a guest showing up. And if I didn't paint it, it wasn't going to get painted. So literally, even though it should have been painted with a spray painter and been done in 5 minutes, my wife and I went in with little brushes and painted that shit stick by stick. We didn't complain about it. We just did it. Because that's what it means to have a goal and say it's all my fault and I'm going to make this happen. Now, for those of you that resonates with, for those of you that right now just had a moment of awakening and realize, holy shit, I'm going to kick myself in the ass. I'm going to go do something. Things are either I'm getting the result that I want or I'm not getting the result that I want. Go do it, man. Blow me away. Show me that you're the one. Show me that you're the one that cuts through the clutter, that really puts in the effort and makes it happen and holds yourself to a result. People do not judge you by your intentions. They judge you by your results. Get it done. Prove me wrong.
Oh, man. Thanks for being on the show today, Tom.
Thanks for having me.
It's been a true privilege.
It's been an honor.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
a wrap, guys.
At the end of the day, there are no shortcuts. And that's the beauty, right? So you don't have to worry about somebody being more naturally gifted than you.
Starting the day is writing out what my mentor teaches me is the AID, which is appreciation,